Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1062 just came out, and this was a really fun chapter that also managed to give us some interesting reveals and very quickly established a sense of threat and conflict for this arc that I think most of us were not really expecting. I mean, the world government immediately at the very start of an arc that is focused around the world government's most prized asset, for the conflict of that arc to turn out to be the world government deciding to assassinate said asset. That is not something that I think any of us were expecting to be the main problem that we're going to be facing over the course of Egghead Island. So that aside, I kind of want to talk first and foremost about the quick reveals we got regarding Vegapunk and Bonnie. But before we get into it, make sure to subscribe and make sure you're keeping your data safe online with Surfshark, the sponsor for this video. Surfshark is an award-winning VPN. VPNs allow you to virtually swap your location online to anywhere else in the world, meaning that right now, you can get access to movies, TV shows, sports, and more in other countries that you are blocked from seeing in the United States. That means, for example, you could even get access to anime that is only available for free streaming in Japan. And on top of that, Surfshark completely protects you while you surf the web. While you're using Surfshark, no one can get your information. No big companies, no cyber criminals. You are essentially invisible online when you use Surfshark because Surfshark encrypts your data and makes sure that nothing about your personal identity can be tracked. Even Surfshark itself doesn't monitor or track what you do online. And on top of that, it even protects you from ads and malware. So you are free to immediately get access to anime, movies, TV shows from anywhere on the globe the moment you switch Surfshark on, with your data absolutely secure, zero risk of being tracked, and zero ads. And for my viewers, you can use code MORGE to get 83% off Surfshark right now, plus 3 extra months completely free. You get a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have zero risk trying it out. Link in the description below. So that aside, to begin with Bonnie. Bonnie is Kuma's daughter. I think that that's not the craziest thing we really learned this chapter. I think that it was inevitable, I guess obvious to us all that at this point that Bonnie is going to have some sort of important relationship with Kuma. We just had to figure out what that was. So is it a friend? Is it romantic? Is it family? So it turned out that she's his daughter. Cool. So we got that out of the way. I guess that this will be a really, really good segue for us to learn more about the Sorbet Kingdom and everything that happened with that, and why Kuma ended up, in the state that he's currently in, etc., etc. I actually have some fun theories about that you can watch out for maybe next week's video, or maybe I think the week afterwards, depending on how scheduling works out. So the Bonnie situation, I think that we are set to get some really good. Oda is just teasing us right now with the amount of exposition and knowledge that Bonnie has, because not only is she talking, she's Kuma's daughter, she was just at Marijoa, she's bringing that up and establishing very quickly for us that yes, Sabo, information about Marijoa and more importantly information about Sabo is in her head. She did get to see Sabo. Something very interesting that people pointed out is that if she got to see Sabo, it is very possible that she also got to see Im, because we know that Sabo at the very least got to see Im while Im was sitting on the throne. So who knows where Bonnie was at that point in time, but it's very possible that Bonnie knows basically 90% of the answer to 90% of the questions we have as to what went on in that situation. So that's really exciting. I mean, beyond just the information she has on Kuma, the information she has about Marijoa and what happened with Im and Sabo, all of that stuff, especially considering what's going on with Sabo and the Lucia Kingdom right now, all of that stuff is very, very relevant, very, very important. And Oda knows that. And so he's telling us right now, hey, this stuff is coming soon through this character. That's partly why this character is here, but I'm not going to tell you yet because it's Oda, so it's just the way it is. But that's really exciting. If I were to compare it to the Zou arc, which a lot of people already are, and I mean, I think that it is a very, very warranted comparison, considering that both arcs take place very shortly. I mean, immediately after the conclusion to a big battle arc, Dressrosa and Wano respectively. Both arcs start off with a more fun tone, right? Obviously, this chapter was a lot of Straw Hats goofing around and everything like that. Both arcs seem like they're set up to give us a lot of exposition. And then both arcs have a villain. Well, I'll talk about this a bit more towards the end of this discussion, but there are similarities, I think, to how Jack and maybe even CP0 are being set up here. Not to disrespect the great Rob Lucci by comparing him to Jack the Drought, but I'm just talking, I guess, conceptually as to what they might both serve for this arc, but we'll get to that in a second. So Just talking about comparing Egghead Island to Zou, I think one of the really cool things is that Oda's getting into it much faster with Egghead Island. In that, yes, both arcs started off pretty light, but in Zou, it took us some time before we realized that this arc is actually going to be very important lore-wise and exposition-wise, and for us learning a lot about the mysteries of things, right? It took to the end. Right now, Oda's, one, already telling us some interesting stuff, so Bonnie. Two, revealing that Vegapunk is, in fact, a single person, but who has split his consciousness, it seems, or at the very least, maybe there is a single consciousness, and that's the main consciousness, and he's got 6 additional consciousnesses. You know what I'm saying. He's revealing some important stuff about characters that we wanted to know a lot about for some time. So Bonnie, Kuma, Vegapunk. So he's getting into that stuff quickly, and he's also establishing the threat very early on with CP0, whereas Jack took a little bit of time to get to. So this arc is actually, even if it's similar to Zou, it's moving at a much faster pace than Zou. So I think we're going to get to the juicy stuff a lot quicker. I mean, just last chapter, we got, reveals that Sword, Tashigi, etc., they're all also around the corner. So really, really interesting stuff. I mean, Seraphim, Kuma, let me slow down. Sorry, it's a little late. The chapter just came out. So all that aside, I'm excited for the reveals that we're going to get from Bonnie. She's by far the most interesting character in the situation right now, just because of everything that she knows. But Vegapunk, this was Vegapunk's weirdly Vegapunk's chapter to shine, and Vegapunk didn't even show up in the flesh. That is, if there is a single main body, I suppose, kind of like, look, I'm just gonna say, this is very clearly, there's no way it's not inspired from Pain from Naruto. There's no way. We know that Oda and Kishimoto were buddy, right? It's too specific. It's 6, right? It's 6. Why are there 6 bodies? I'm sure that it has some religious Buddhist connection or something like that, but it just seems very, very similar, right? 6 bodies of Vegapunk, 6 paths of pain. And I think from the diagram that Lucci showed, I would not be surprised if there is one singular, primary body that's also controlling the 6 bodies. If that's not the case, then I suppose that the first body, Shaka, the logic one, would be the main body. There's some interesting, if you saw the Vegapunk Sanji video from last week, there's some interesting things that actually add to that theory, potentially, that people were pointing out design-wise between Shaka and what Sora, Warrior of the Sea, looks like in the World Economic Times. You guys can look at that for yourselves if you're interested in that whatsoever. If you don't think that there's any similarities, then there's no similarities. But Vegapunk, very, very interesting character right off the bat. I do wonder what the full extent of Vegapunk's, I guess, I don't want to say combat abilities are, but the things that Vegapunk was able, the way the lab was showcased to us made it seem very much like a Wonderland, but also like Vegapunk could do almost anything, right? I think even just the food was a really, really good example of that, because, cooking is kind of if we go back through the last few arcs, right, how important has food been played up to be in the last couple arcs, both in Whole Cake Island and in Wano? And Vegapunk's sitting out here and can basically create any meal that's supposedly really, really delicious, no Sanji needed. That's just a small example of the things that, it basically feels as though Vegapunk can do anything, right? Vegapunk can create light holograms and then create technology that allows you to hit light holograms. None of it really makes any sense, but Vegapunk's just able to do it. So I really, really like this chapter as kind of a showcase of the ridiculous, imaginative abilities that come with Dr. Vegapunk. It seems much more fantastical than a lot of the other scientists we've seen where, yeah, their abilities are, the things they create are very interesting. Sure, Caesar's got gigantification, these smile fruits, Queen's got some lasers and stuff like that, Judge's got his clones, but that's all more traditional sci-fi, I suppose. Not to say what we saw out of Vegapunk here isn't as traditional sci-fi. Obviously it's still it's still rooted in that, but it also seems a lot more out there, a lot more outside the box, a lot zanier, crazier, as though Vegapunk can pretty much do anything. So I wonder how that applies to combat and what the strongest robots Vegapunk can kind of put out there. We did get a bit of an idea of how that stacks up to the Straw Hat crew, with the sea beasts outside and everything like that, and Vegapunk correcting himself, I suppose, Vegapunk's own bodies correcting themselves in that, this is a Yonko crew, these beasts are not going to be enough to be able to take them out, so it's good that something like that is established. I like that the Straw Hat crew is finally getting a little bit of respect, because I feel like they've not been getting respect as Yonko. I ranted about that in my stream last night, but they're not getting the respect that Yonko deserve, in my opinion. Green Bull should not have been walking around saying that he could casually take out the Straw Hat crew, but at the same time saying he's afraid of Kaido and that he's afraid of Shanks' crew. So stuff like that. Bonnie casually just talking about Luffy as though he's a Yonko. He's like, oh, you're a Yonko now? Like, come on, he's a Yonko now. Treat him like he's a Yonko, you know? Vegapunk should not be trying to steal from a Yonko because they're a Yonko crew. Vegapunk should be running away with all of his bodies, treating it like it's Kaido or something like that. Just my opinion, the Straw Hats don't get the respect they deserve as a Yonko crew. Mini tangent over. It is cool to see that there is some respect being shown, which is that Vegapunk can identify that, look, Zoro and Robin are both capable of taking you out right now. So I like that that's established. No disrespect to Sanji or Frankie either, because they're both caught up in their own thing. Sanji is love struck, and Frankie is, you know, it's cool to see Frankie in this state where he's just in awe of his idol, which is the best mechanic / engineer / scientist ever, who he basically got to study for 2 years during the time skip. So cool stuff there. I have no idea what the hell Zoro's question for Vegapunk is. I went back and reread chapter 485, where Zoro first learned about Vegapunk. Nothing there. Some people in stream mentioned that maybe Zoro wants Vegapunk to go fix the Smile Fruit situation in Wano, which would be very nice, and I think that would be a great touch for Zoro's character, because it's rare. He's just not the type of person to remember something like that, in my opinion, and carry it with him to the next arc and have that as a sort of little added motivation or desire in that next arc. So it's a small thing that I like for Zoro if that's the case, but otherwise beyond that, I have no idea what Zoro could possibly want out of Vegapunk. So all that aside, let me talk about the ending, which is CP0 showing up. I am not I'm excited to see Lucci again. I'm excited to see Lucci again, and I'm excited to see Kaku again. I'm excited to see Stussy again, because we only got to see so much of her. So I think CP0 being brought in to kill Vegapunk is a great twist and adds tension and conflict into this arc very, very, very early on, which is phenomenal. I think that this arc didn't need that right away. Like, I wasn't sitting there being like, oh, I'm bored of Egghead Island. I was totally down for just chapter after chapter of one, just learning more about Vegapunk, learning about the island, learning about the Bonnie, Kuma, I was fine with exposition dumps, but if Oda's bringing in CP0 to make things more exciting, that's great. That's phenomenal. That's more than I think any of us could have asked for. I'm not like getting my hopes up for a big clash between CP0 and the Straw Hats. It would be interesting to see, for sure. But at the same time, the reason I was comparing it somewhat to Jack is because I feel like it could serve a similar purpose, which is that Oda kind of brought Jack in towards the end of Zou, just so that there is a sense of, you know, some degree of tension or conflict for the arc, some sort of looming extra threat that makes things more, you know, just slightly more exciting. So it's not just exposition. And then the way that that threat is dealt with isn't a direct confrontation necessarily. Rather, it ties into the building mysteries that have already been being established throughout the arc, which is, oh wait, Zunisha is fully conscious and for some reason obeys Momonosuke. And all of a sudden, that's one more mystery to slot into all of this expanding bit of lore that we just got, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get like a full-blown battle between CP0 and the Straw Hats, simply because the similarity that I see here is kind of, it's cool that Jack was approaching Zou, but realistically, looking at the force that was sitting on Zou, there was no way Jack was ever going to mess with that group, with like the full Straw Hat crew, plus the two Dukes, plus all of the Minks and everything. It's just not even close to a contest, right? That's similar to what I feel now, which is, sure, Lucci, very strong character as we know, Lucci, Kaku, Stussy approaching, but this is Joy Boy, this is, you know, Gear 5th, Awakened Fruit, Luffy, and the full Straw Hat crew, Zoro, Sanji just finished demolishing, you know, Yonko commanders, Jinbei, etc., plus Vegapunk and everything Vegapunk has up his sleeve, plus you've got Bonnie. It's just, it doesn't feel as though the threat that's approaching here is that big of a deal in the long run, you know? it doesn't feel like we're set up, at least to me, to see CP0 give the Straw Hats like a huge challenge or anything like that. It's kind of like, it's to me, it seems something as though it's there to add, again, some degree of tension, conflict to the arc, but it's not something that's going to lead to a direct confrontation. Honestly, we could go slightly more recently back and look at Green Bull. The Green Bull arriving at Wano. A lot of us were excited initially, like, oh, are the Straw Hats going to fight Green Bull and everything? But then, you know, as that whole situation resolved itself and we see Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei just sitting and chilling, we kind of get a perspective, sort of a perspective check, which is like, they're so relaxed. Okay, of course they're relaxed. This is who they're a Yonko crew at this point. Luffy just took on Kaido 1v1 and essentially got the better of him. Of course they're not going to be worried about Green Bull walking around. So again, CP0, I'm excited to see them. I want to see more of Lucci and Kaku, obviously, and more of Stussy because we've only gotten to see so much of her. I'm happy these characters are here, but I'm not putting expectations there that, oh, there's going to be a big fight or anything like that, because it's a mismatch, if we're being perfectly honest, between the Straw Hat crew and CP0 right now. So again, just looking forward to exposition, and whatever little CP0 can bring to this arc is cool with me. So beyond that, let me talk about what you guys had to say with the community voice. So community voice is when I read out the top tier patrons' most highly upvoted comment for this chapter. Don John said, I think CP0 will be stopped by some of the middle Straw Hats like Frankie and Robin, with Zoro or Sanji low diff beating Lucci. So I think that, and he adds that this chapter words from Vegapunk about the Straw Hats now being an Emperor crew makes me think that non-commander Straw Hats will get some much needed hype, and when they leave this island heading into the final war, the entire crew will look like terrifying monsters. So that's interesting. That's going a little bit against what I was feeling, which is that we're not really going to get a fight out of CP0. I do think it's possible we get a skirmish, because I don't think that they do nothing at the end of the day. And it would be great if, I think it would be a little disrespectful if Zoro or Sanji low diff beat Lucci, or even if you had a Frankie Lucci fight or a Robin Lucci fight, just because I feel like it makes Lucci look kind of bad, considering the way we once viewed him back in Enies Lobby, and kind of the way that Oda's brought Crocodile back with so much respect put on his name. I feel like Oda's not going to disrespect Lucci like that. So I think when Oda's bringing back characters like this, I don't think that he's going to make them look bad. I think he's going to try and make everyone look good, maybe give us a quick, nice, fun skirmish out of it or something like that. But at the end of the day, I don't think Lucci's going to go out, low diffed by Zoro or Sanji. At least I hope not. Not that I think that it wouldn't be fair or earned. It's just I don't want to see Lucci disrespected like that, because I like Lucci. Or even having like a difficult fight with Robin or something, just because, it makes the whole Enies Lobby arc look a little ridiculous if that's where we're at now. But again, maybe that's just because I like Lucci. But that's all for this video. If you enjoyed, then definitely like, comment, and subscribe.